Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. My name is Tim Krause and I'm serving as your worship associate this morning. Our mission is to welcome all with love to support learning and spiritual growth, to serve our wider community and to work for justice, equity, and inclusion. In that spirit, we acknowledge that we live on and worship on land that was forcibly taken from the Miamia and Shawnee people, who were the descendants of the ancient mound builders. Today's a very special day, too, because this is Father's Day. Yes, all the fathers, raise your hands, and grandfathers. We hope all of you fathers, as well as the children and spouses of fathers, have a very special day of celebration. In addition to Father's Day, we are also observing Juneteenth this week, celebrating the final defeat of slavery in America, with the actual national holiday falling on Wednesday, June 19th, this week. So there are celebrations and observances happening all this weekend and all this week. For instance, today from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the afternoon in Eden Park, there will be a Father's Day Juneteenth concert, and the Art Museum is going to be open with activities all day for people who want to go back and forth. And then on Wednesday, the Freedom Center is going to have a full day of activities, and it's going to be free for admission. So if you get a chance to talk to Amy Bottomley, our member who is the education director of the Freedom Center, she can fill you in on the details of that. Please make sure to read all the announcements and inserts in today's order of service, where you can find important information regarding accommodations and upcoming events. This summer is going to be very busy here at First Church. Now, one last thing I want to mention is that next Sunday, we will not be gathering here in the sanctuary. This is GA Sunday, and that GA service is going to be streamed from our YouTube channel, but it's also going to be streamed nationally at 1 o'clock from the UUA. And so there will be two opportunities to see the service on next Sunday, but we're not going to be meeting in here. We will just stream it from YouTube and also stream it from the UUA website. We will send out the links to both of those times later this week so that you have the links to go to those worship services. The flowers today are given by Bev and Bill Baker in honor of all of the first UU volunteers that we've had this year. And as we know, it takes an entire village to run this church. So thank you, Bill, and it's great to have these flowers for us. Now, before we begin our service, let's take a moment to wave to the people who are watching, and then we can greet each other, and you can say hello in the chat. I will ring the singing bell or bowl to get us back so we can continue our service. Chloe, would you please come up and help us with the lighting of the chalice? Today is Father's Day, so we take this moment to hold space for all that may mean to us. We hold love for those who have lost fathers and for those fathers who have lost children. We acknowledge and hold non-binary, transgender, and cisgender dads in families made of two dads, foster families, and adoptive dads, and single dads. We hold and work to lift up all fathers of color and those fathers raising children of color. We hold fathers kept apart from their children by borders, prisons, and war. We hold fathers and children who have lost connection, children who have been disowned or abandoned by their fathers, and then the father figures who have stepped in. We hold those longing to become fathers. We hold those who may be full of questions about their biological fathers. Most importantly, we hold and thank the dads, papas, daddies, grandfathers, and all who show up every day to give their all to the children who need them. Human relations are quite complicated. These days of recognition are quite complex. So as we light our chalice in honor of fathers, please take a moment to breathe in what serves you and breathe out that which does not serve you. Thank you, Chloe. And now for our first hymn today. We're going to sing Wake Now My Senses, number 298 in the gray hymnal. Please rise as you are able.
Where you going, buddy? I don't know. It's up to you. Let's go over here. Let's go hang out with the kids. Hey, y'all. You want to come meet my dog? My dog is proof that it's true, that dogs are people's best friend. Come meet my dog. He is an incredibly kind animal. And while we meet my dog, I'm going to ask our tech folks to throw up that picture of Godot, because I want to ask you a question about this picture of Godot I took. That's this dog. And so, here, we can sit down even, because you all can hear me. And if there are any adults out there who want to add to our numbers and come meet Godot, you are welcome to come sit with us. Come on up if you want to meet my dog. If you actually pet my dog, he is so soft, isn't he? Pet him. Because I have a secret. I'll tell this. All dog owners should know this secret. I gave him a bath yesterday, and I used horse shampoo and horse conditioner. And so, isn't he really soft? And his name's Godot, like Godot. 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 And that is a picture of my dog up there. Oh, can we put it back up for just a second? Can we get, there you go. All right, so when you see that picture, what do you think my dog's doing in that picture? Running? Laughing? Grinning? Barking? Getting dirty? Growling. Finally, somebody gave me the answer that I always get when I show this picture. So you all project wonderfully kind things onto that image. Every time I show that image to people, they think you have a mean dog. And the truth is, that is called a Chessie smile. He's a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, called a Chessie for short, and they are known for these smiles. And if you go on Google and you type in Chesapeake Bay Retriever smile and hit images, you will get lots and lots of pictures, but none as good as this. This is the best smiling picture I've ever seen. And the reason I got it is because we were walking through the woods in northern Michigan, and he was rolling in something. And I didn't like it, so I just snapped my fingers and said his name, and he decided, uh-oh, I'm in trouble, I better apologize. And I just happened to be taking a picture at that time. Can you sit? Can you sit? All right, so it's not just about meeting my dog today, because I could talk about my dog till dinner time, so we're not going to just spend all this time talking about my dog. I want to make a point about dogs, and this is for everybody. Have you ever hugged a dog?
I've hugged dogs a lot.
Yeah, when you hug a dog, lots of people have hugged dogs, and when you hug dogs, you take your arms like this, and you go up to them and you squeeze them, right? Mm-hmm. How does a dog usually respond when you do that?
Sometimes they bark, but I think they're saying thank you.
You think they're saying thank you? Do they hug you back? They don't hug you back, do they? Isn't that interesting? We hug dogs all the time, but dogs never hug us back. Why is that? They don't know how to hug. So dogs are not people. A lot of people think dogs are people, but dogs are not people. But we treat them like people all the time. And we can throw our arms around a dog to give it a hug, but you know what? It doesn't know what you're doing. It doesn't even necessarily know that that's affection. So the dog, even my dog, if I went and grabbed him, he'd cringe a little bit because he's not used to that. He's a quadruped. He moves on 4 legs. That's what quad means, 4. Quadruped. He moves on 4 legs. Do you want to pet him? You can get closer and pet him if you want. We're bipeds. We have 2 legs, and we have 2 arms. So we move through the world differently than dogs. And one thing it's important to recognize, what's that? He is at church, isn't he? And he doesn't know how to be at church. So one of the lessons about dogs is it's important to remember they're so different than we are. They're different kind of animals. So when you are with a dog, it's really important to remember the dog is a dog, not a person. And if you want to interact with a dog and be successful, you got to know how dogs behave. And if you go up to a dog, especially a dog you don't know, and you throw your arms around it, it doesn't know what you're doing, and you don't know that dog, so you got to be kind of careful. So it's important to learn, how do dogs behave? Like, how do they show affection? How do dogs show affection? Yeah, we think they're kissing us, right? You know what they're doing? They can smell the remnants of food on our lips. And we call it a kiss. They're after what remnants of food are on our lips. They have great noses. You know what they do, if you watch dogs and wolves in the wild, you know, they huddle together in packs and they lay really close to each other. And they can feel each other's bodies. And that's how they feel connections with others. This is very different than giving a hug, isn't it? Yeah, so just a simple lesson that dogs are different creatures than people. And so we're going to end with another thought. Sometimes people are different creatures than people. And the lesson about like knowing a dog and understanding a dog and knowing how to relate to it also applies to other people in our lives, because people are very different from each other too, right? So some people are more approachable, some people are less approachable, some people are kinder, some people are less kind, some people are very active, some people are not so active, some people are very sensitive, some people aren't very sensitive at all. And so when we approach other people, he's after your breakfast. Is he licking your face? So when we approach other people, it's kind of nice just to take a minute and ask yourself, what do I know about this person? I'm talking really to the adults now. And what's the best way to approach this particular person? And you can learn a lot about doing that by having a dog or studying the Enneagram. All of which recordings are available to you at your request. All right.
I love cats and dogs.
You know, cats are cool too, except I am fiercely allergic to cats, so I can't have a cat. But someday I was thinking as I was preparing this, there's got to be a cat owner going out. Yeah, it's always about the dogs. So I think maybe someday we should have somebody, when I'm not in the pulpit, bring in a cat and do sermon about the cat. All right, we're going to dismiss ourselves to Sunday school class, if you would. So if you would, Jera. All right. He's going to stay with me, though. All right. So this can look like a very indulgent Sunday morning for me, and to some extent it is. But I have had dogs my whole life. And so I have learned a great deal from dogs. So while it's an indulgent Sunday morning, because I have my best friend with me this morning, it's also a morning with some important messages from our relationships to our canine fellow travelers on this planet. And so the reading I'm going to do, and then the poem I'm going to read later, then the sermon I'm going to do in the closing words, these are all about dogs. But each of my selections has different lessons for us about dogs. And I think that if you are somebody who truly understands the relationships with dogs and people, you can actually learn a great deal about how to be a human being by being in relationship with dogs. So this is a reading from Annie Lamott, which I stumbled upon a long time ago. And then I remembered it yesterday when I was thinking about the reading, or Friday when I put this together, and I thought, I'm going to share this reading because it too has a great lesson about dogs, but it's a really sad reading, just so you know. And I'm probably going to cry. I'll probably cry during the poem. I don't think I'll cry during the sermon. But it's called This Dog's Life by Annie Lamott. When Sam was 2, it seemed that the first Gulf War would assure George Bush's re-election. I couldn't help noticing I was depressed. I decided that I either needed to move, marry an armed man, or find a violent but well-behaved dog. I was determined to stay and fight. I wasn't going to move. And the men I tended to love were not remotely well enough to carry guns. So I stuck with the dog idea. For a while, I called people who were advertising dogs in the local paper. Everyone said they had the perfect dog, but after a while, I wondered, perfect for whom? Quentin Tarantino? One dog we auditioned belonged to a woman who said her dog adored children, but lunged at Sam as soon as he met the dog. Another dog ran to hide, peeing as she ran. So I took the initiative and ran an ad for a mellow, low-energy guard dog. The next day, we got a call from a woman who said she had just the dog for us. As it turned out, she did have a great dog, a gorgeous 2-year-old named Sadie, half black lab, half golden retriever. She looked like a black Irish setter. I always told people she was like Jesus in a black fur coat, or Audrey Hepburn in black glamour, elegant and loving and silly, such a lady. She lived with us for 10 years, saw us through great joy and great loss. She consoled us through friends' illnesses and the death of Sam's grandparents. She helped me survive my boyfriends and the metallic, percussive loneliness in between them. She helped Sam survive his first mean girlfriend, and she'd let my mother stroke her head for hours on end. Sadie was a mother, a father, and a psych nurse. But when she was about to turn 13, she developed lymphoma. Our vet said she would live a month if we didn't treat her. Part of me wanted to let her die so we could get it over with, have the pain behind us. But Sam and I talked it over and decided to get her half a dose of chemo. We wanted her to have one more great spring. She went in and out of remission for 2.5 years. When she reached the end of her days, the vet said she'd feel safer dying at home, alone with me. I warned you. He gave me 3 syringes full of narcotics. I lay beside her and assured her that she was a good dog, even though she could no longer take care of us. I prayed for her to die quickly and without pain for her sake, but mostly because I wanted her to die before Sam got home from school. I gave her morphine, prayed, and talked to her softly. I stayed beside her until she raised her head to look around like a black horse. Then she sighed, lay her head down, and died. Having a good dog is the closest some of us are ever going to come to knowing the direct love of a mother or God or whomever. So it's no wonder it knocked the stuffing out of me and Sam when Sadie died. I promised Sam we'd get another puppy someday, but secretly promised myself I would never get another dog. I didn't want to hurt that much again. But you don't always get what you want. You get what you get. You want to protect your child from pain, and what you get instead is life and grace. And while theologians insist that grace is freely given, I think the truth is that sometimes you have to pay for grace through the nose. And you certainly can't pay your child's way. Then, out of the blue again, 6 months later, some friends gave us a 5-month-old puppy named Lily. She is huge, sweet, and well-behaved, mostly. She's not a stunning bathing beauty like Sadie was. In fact, she looks quite a lot like Walter Matthau. But she's lovely, and she's loving, and we adore her. Testing. So I got through the reading pretty well, actually, by my usual standards. And the meditation or the poem I'm about to share this morning is called The Ballad of the Fox Hunter, which I've always found a tearjerker as well. But, you know, in this story, the reason I want to share it is because when you're a dog person, you understand the level of intimacy that you can have with a dog. The emotional bond is incredibly tight because they're pack animals, and that's what they desire most from us, to be part of the pack. And when you let that happen successfully, you've got a best friend for life. And this is just one expression by William Butler Yeats of what that kind of intimacy is like. And it's about a fox hunter who's dying, and the rest of it will be apparent. Lay me in a cushioned chair. Carry me, ye four, with cushions here and cushions there, to see the world once more. To stable and to kennel go, bring what there is to bring, lead my lollard to and fro, or gently in a ring. Put the chair upon the grass, bring Roddy and his hounds, that I may contented pass from these earthly bounds. His eyelids droop, his head falls low, his old eyes cloud with dreams. The sun upon all things that grow falls in sleepy streams. Brown Lollard treads upon the lawn and to the armchair goes. And now the old man's dreams are gone, and he smooths the long brown nose. And now moves many a pleasant tongue upon his wasted hands, for leading aged hounds and young, the huntsman near him stands. And he says, Huntsman Roddy, blow the horn, make the hills reply. So the huntsman loosens on the morn a gay wandering cry. Fire is in the old man's eyes, his fingers move and sway, and when the wandering music dies, they hear him feebly say, Huntsman Roddy, blow the horn, make the hills reply. I cannot blow upon my horn, I can but weep and sigh. Servants round his cushioned place are with new sorrow wrung. Hounds are grazing on his face, aged hounds and young. One blind hound only lies apart on the sun-smitten grass. He holds deep commune with his heart. The moments pass and pass. The blind hound with a mournful din lifts slow his wintry head. The servants bear the body in. The hounds wail for the dead. Our next hymn this morning is number 1009 in the teal hymnal. Hopefully everybody grabbed a teal hymnal on the way in. Let's sing this through about 3 times if we could. Please rise as you are able. You like that? Let's just stay seated and sing that a couple more times. All right, how we doing? Good, awesome. How y'all doing? Happy Father's Day. Thank you. That's true. It's my Father's Day too. Yeah, it's good to see you all here on Father's Day. Thank you. So the message today is pretty simple, and it's not going to be a lengthy sermon, but it's an important takeaway, and it's one of the many lessons I've learned from having dogs in my life. But it's going to start with a not dog story. It's going to start with the story of the play Waiting for Godot, which is where I got my current dog's name. My wife and I tend to give our dogs very existential names. Like my Malamute was named Nietzsche. This Chessie's named Godot. My previous Chessie was named Hooch, after Turner and Hooch, the movie. Different story. My wife's last dog was an Australian Shepherd named Ophelia, and you all know Ophelia's fate, right? So we tend to go existential when we name our critters. But I named Godot for a reason, which I'll tell you in just a minute. How many people here have seen the play or maybe read the play Waiting for Godot? That's a pretty good percentage of us. This is not one of those moments where I'm going to say to you, if you haven't seen or read the play, spend your afternoon doing it. Because most people don't find this a very enthralling experience. I tend to find tedious, painful boredom experiences fascinating. I love this play. I've read it a dozen times. I've watched a couple versions of it. I just love this play because I'm a philosopher by heart. And the play gets to the ennui of human existence, and I'll explain that in just a minute. One of my favorite movies is My Dinner with Andre. How many people have seen My Dinner with Andre? Equally exciting, right? Well, don't rush home and watch that on Father's Day either. But Waiting for Godot, to get to the point, is a play written by Samuel Becket, and I think it was the early 20th century, maybe 1930s, 40s when he wrote it. It was popular in the 1950s in Europe. And it's about these two... no better word for it than buffoons. One named Vladimir and one named Estragon. And they're the 2 of 4 characters in the play, but they're 90-some% of the play. So it's basically a 2-character play. And the setting's very simple. It's these 2 guys, and Becket only described them. He gave no detail other than he imagined them wearing bowler hats. So I kind of think Laurel and Hardy type of people when I think of Vladimir and Estragon, especially when you see the play. And it's a simple country road, and in the background there's this tree that's got no leaves on it. And the 2 of them are sitting by the road, And the play is about them waiting for Mr. Godot to arrive, for those of you who haven't seen it or read it. And so while Vladimir and Estragon wait for Godot to arrive, they have to occupy themselves. And so they do all sorts of things. They do yoga, they eat carrots, they talk philosophy, they compare the story of the crucifixion in the different Gospels. And when they get really bored, when the ennui of life sets in, one of them says, "Could always hang ourselves by that tree while we wait for Godot." And so the first act is the first day they're waiting for Godot. And toward the end of the first act, a boy arrives. And the boy says, "I'm sorry to report, but this is not the day Mr. Godot is going to arrive. He will be sure to arrive tomorrow." And then the boy leaves, and Vladimir and Estragon look at each other and say, "Well, we should leave. Yes, we should leave." And they stay seated and they don't move. End of Act 1. Act 2, to save time, exact same thing plays out all over again. And toward the end of the act, the boy arrives and says, "I'm very sorry to report again, but Mr. Godot will not be arriving today. He will perhaps be arriving tomorrow." And they decide, well, in that case, perhaps we best leave. And they don't move. And the curtain falls, end of play. I love that play because to me what that play is really about, it gets to this question of being haphazardly thrown into existence, each of us. And we arise within existence and we have this consciousness as human beings. But we don't really know what to do with it. So we have to figure out ways to spend our time on planet Earth until Mr. Godot arrives. Then suddenly what we're waiting for will have occurred. But life is kind of like the play. In the play, Mr. Godot never arrives. And often in life, what we're waiting for never arrives. So we're kind of like Vladimir and Estragon, figuring out ways to occupy ourselves until the thing we're waiting for actually shows up. But it often, or almost never, really shows up. And this gets to what 20th century existential philosophers would call the philosophy of the absurd. It's a philosophy born out of the fact that we are human beings with a consciousness that can self-reflect and think about our experiences. And because we have this ability, we expect there to be meaning in life. Why am I here? What is the point of it all? It will eventually be figured out by me, and then I'll understand why I was hurtled into this existence as Alexander Riegel or whomever you are. And we spend a lot of time trying to figure out, what is our Mr. Godot? What is it we need for life finally to be an experience that clicks for us, that makes this consciousness worth having arisen within the universe? And it's different for each of us. And each of us actually have had many Mr. Godots, metaphorically speaking, throughout our lives. Maybe I'm just waiting for the right relationship. Then I can get on with life and the experience of me in this universe will make sense. Or maybe if I were just living somewhere else, it would all click for me. Or if I just had a different job, it would all click for me. Or when I was 20, if I'd made this choice instead of that choice, it would all click for me. Or if I won the lottery, it would all click for me. If I were smarter, it would click for me. If I was more physically agile, it would click for me. If I had more hair, it would click for me. We're waiting for a lot of stuff, aren't we? And often it never arrives, despite our best efforts. We will do an awful lot to try to make the universe work according to how we think the universe ought to work for us. Usually we create more messes than we solve problems doing that. But what else are we to do while we're waiting for Godot to arrive? I think this play is a great commentary on the human experience. And if you like existentialism, go home and read the play or watch it. But you got 90% of what the play is about in that 5-minute summary. And so this play raises the obvious question. What do we do if Godot never arrives? What is life about if that thing we think we need never shows up for us? And I actually solved this question for myself watching my dog Godot sitting by a river in the woods in Grayling, Michigan. I was watching him, and I happened to have my camera. I took a picture. I'll show it to you in a bit. And I took that picture, and I thought, that's the response to Becket's play, Waiting for Godot. And we'll get there in about 10 minutes. In the meantime, I got another photo I want to show you. This is a photo of a dog. That is not Godot. That is Hooch. Hooch was adopted by me from a non-kill animal shelter. We were her third family, and we realized when we got her home that the reason we were her third family in the first year of her life is because she was a handful. This dog had more self-will than Darth Vader. This dog was in charge. And we learned before too long that the dog had aggression issues. And so I had my hands full with Godot. And we had a very fascinating relationship. 90-some% of the time, she was the most amazing dog you'd ever want. But that 7-ish% of the time, you don't want to be in her orbit when she's having a moment. But the main thing about Hooch here is that Hooch had a mind and a will of her own that you couldn't compete with. You think 2-year-olds are self-willed. You should have seen Hooch, and you can take the photo down anytime you want now. So Hooch had her own ideas about when she was going to do what she wanted to do. So we've been going up to the woods of northern Michigan for a long time, and there's a lake up there. This dog got her like 20 years ago, and she passed away about 12 years ago. And we'd go to the lake, and she'd swim. I could get in my kayak and kayak for hours, and she'd be right next to me, never going to shore. I'd eventually go into shore, and she'd be out swimming in the lake, and I'm like, Hooch, let's go. Maybe. There was one day when my wife wanted Hooch to sit. So when you got a dog like this, it's like, I can't be the only one who can get the dog to obey. My wife needed to get the dog to obey, so she'd work on Hooch for a while, and one of the first things she wanted to do was make sure that dog listened to her. So she was trying to teach Hooch to sit. And so we were all in the living room, and Hooch was standing, and my wife decided to say, it's a good moment to teach the dog to listen to me. So implicit, Alex, don't say a word. This is my moment with your dog. Got it. And so she would say, Hooch, sit. And Hooch is like, oh, didn't hear anything. Hooch would look at me like, did you hear anything? I'm not allowed to talk, Hooch. So I'd be quiet, and my wife would say, Hooch, sit. And Hooch would look at my wife, and she'd look at me like, and it came out a third time, Hooch, sit. And Hooch looks at me, and I'm thinking, we're just going to keep upping the ante, and it's not going to be a pretty moment if my dog doesn't sit. So if you're a dog trainer, you know this, like this means sit. So thinking my wife couldn't see me, I'm like, but my wife saw me. I got in trouble. Hooch didn't sit. Hooch did what she wanted, that's the point. But here's the thing. Since Hooch had her own mind, and she was incredibly self-willed, and she did what she wanted when she wanted the vast majority of time, she frustrated my agenda a lot. I had a life to lead. I don't have 2 hours to stand here on the sandy beach and ask you to get in from the lake. I don't want it to take 5 minutes for you to put your behind on the ground when I ask you to sit, etc., etc., etc. I got so many examples of this. So that's where Hooch was a little bit frustrating, but you know, you got to love the critters in your life totally. So I learned to love it. It was just her thing. And we've all got a thing, don't we? So that's the first part of the lesson, is that I had an agenda for life. I was waiting for Mr. Godot. And Hooch wasn't. And so she was the one in control. Well, she passed before too long. And then I got my Malamute, Nietzsche. Then Nietzsche passed. Then I waited a year and a half because, you know, like Annie Lamott, when Nietzsche died, it knocked the stuffing out of me. It took me a year and a half to be willing to get another dog. And I thought, do I want to go get another Malamute? Or do I want to get a Chesapeake Bay Retriever? Because they're both amazing animals. And I decided I'm going to get a Chessie, but not a rescue. I'm going to get this one from a breeder at 8 weeks old. And it's going to only know me, and it's going to be an incredibly well-behaved dog, and it's going to be a great relationship. And that actually turned out to be the case. This is the best dog I've ever had, and it's the last dog I'll ever have. And when Godot passes away, don't show up 5 months later with a dog and hand it to me like Annie Lamott had, because I don't want another dog. They don't get any better than this. So when I got the dog, though, I'm like, it's important what I name my dogs. What am I going to name this dog? And I thought, well, I know the breed. They're pretty darn stubborn, and odds are pretty good. I'm going to have to love this dog, even though it's probably not going to listen to me really well. And I'm going to have a lot of patience waiting for this dog to do what I ask. So I thought, I'll name it Godot. I'm going to name this dog Godot. Because if I'm at the beach and somebody calls me up and my dog's in the lake, and I pick up the phone and they say, what are you doing? I'm going to be able to say, I'm waiting for Godot. And it's going to be true. Irony of ironies, it turns out that this Chessie is a one-command dog. I never have to ask her to do anything more than once, and she listens. So she doesn't fit the namesake, but I love the name, Godot. So that's how Godot became Godot. Well, this Chessie is a very different experience than my other Chessie. So we can put up the picture of Godot by the river here. That's the picture of Godot I got by the river. That is the answer to Samuel Becket's play, Waiting for Godot. And you probably, if you're a careful reader, notice the title of this sermon is not Waiting for Godot. It's entitled Waiting with Godot. And that's today's takeaway. So, when I was up in the woods with Godot, we walked through the woods a lot. We go out on the state land, and I open the door, and she runs out, and she gets 2-3 hours of freedom while I tramp through the woods, not a human being in sight. Sometimes she likes to sit by the river. So we're walking down by the river, and she's sitting there looking at the river, and I wasn't waiting for Mr. Godot. I had plenty of time to spare, so I'm sitting there looking at the river with her, him. Hooch her, Godot him. And I had a moment where it's like I was in total commune with the dog who was in total commune with the river. And it was an exquisite moment of just seeming oneness with the whole thing. And of course, I had to take out my camera and take a picture and interrupt that oneness. But I thought, I got to get a picture of this. And so this is my dog Godot waiting by the river up at my in-laws' place in the woods of northern Michigan. And I think this is a very telling photograph from the point of view of Beckett's play, Waiting for Godot, what we do while we're trying to live our life on this planet. So if you look at this picture, Godot's staring at the river, and of course, rivers flow. And when I watched Godot, he was there for like 10 minutes. It's like, this is amazing. This dog is just watching it flow. And I thought to myself, what a skill, just to watch the river flow. Watch the river flow. What's the river going to bring me next? What's the river going to bring me next? Where does it go after this? And just watch the river flow. an agendaless moment, letting the river just flow. Godot wasn't waiting for Godot. Godot didn't need anything to happen in that moment to be okay. In fact, Godot was at seeming perfect peace as far as I could tell, because Godot didn't need anything to happen in that moment to be okay. Just being content to watch the river flow. What a great lesson that was for me. Let the river be the metaphor for life. Life just keeps flowing, doesn't it? Do you ever notice life flows? I mean, mentally in the abstract, if I say that, you know it, you can think about it. But have you ever noticed, as a subjective experience, that if you just sit by the banks of the river, you can watch life flow? And it just keeps unfurling and unfolding and showing us things without any effort on our part. Did you ever notice that? I bet a lot of us have never had that experience. Because if you're always waiting for Mr. Godot to arrive, you're not going to see that. Is that point clear enough? Something I once said to my congregation, my previous congregation, do you understand that? And somebody pulled me aside after the service and said, you know, we're not stupid. What do you mean? Well, you know, from time to time you say, do you get it? I'm like, no, I'm not asking you if you're smart enough to get it. I'm asking you, am I saying this clearly enough that I'm saying what I think I'm saying? So that's what I mean by that. Don't be offended. But does that make sense? If we're always waiting for Godot, we'll have our consciousness peaked on the thing we think we need. The rest of the life flows by, unfolds, unfurls, presents things that never get on our radar. So I think that the answer to waiting for Godot is to quit waiting for Godot and wait with Godot and let life flow by and take it all in. And here's what I can guarantee you. When life flows by and the thing you really need floats down the river of life in front of you, you'll know it. When life unfurls in a certain direction, seemingly calling you in a certain direction, and it's for you, you'll know it. Life hasn't forgotten about us. We have forgotten about it. So the takeaway this morning is we need to learn to wait with Godot. Otherwise, life just passes by. Does this sound familiar to you at all? I'm going to end with a few quotes. In case I wasn't as clear as I like to think I am, there was a previous spiritual teacher who taught a similar thing, and I'm going to read a few of his quotes, because I think if you didn't get my point, maybe you'll get this one. And Jesus said, recognize what is in your sight, and that which is hidden from you will become plain to you. You know, we Unitarians have done a really good job of just throwing those teachings away. Think about that. Recognize what is in your sight. Implicit in Jesus' words here is you don't even recognize what you're looking at. You see, but you do not see. Recognize what is in your sight, the sacred depth and beauty with which life presents itself to us, perhaps. And that which is hidden from you, that which you didn't see before, will become plain to you. And Jesus said, split a piece of wood and I am there. Lift up the stone and you will find me there. And his disciples said, when will the kingdom come? And Jesus said, it will not come by waiting for Mr. Godot. It will not be a matter of saying, here it is or there it is. Rather, the kingdom of God is spread out upon the earth. It is spread out upon the earth. But people do not see it. And the original text added, because they're busy waiting for Godot. All right, let's conclude with this thought. In the play Waiting for Godot, Vladimir says toward the end of Act 1, I just get used to the muck as I go along. I just get used to the muck as I go along. A lot of people just get used to the muck as they go along. And that's the tragedy of human existence. So, what I learned from Hooch, but I had to have Godot to see it, which helped me understand Hooch better. Hooch, in all of her stubbornness and all of her doing things on her time, was inviting me into the present moment. It's okay if I keep swimming. It's okay if I don't want to sit. It's okay if I want to chew this toy for 2 hours. It's okay if I don't want to get out of my crate. It's okay if I don't want to hop in that car for you. Because she was in her moments. And I couldn't let her be in her moments. It was hard. But when I learned to be with Godot, I realized I could have been in a moment with Hooch all the time. Whether it was swimming in the lake or staring at the car or not getting out of her crate, whatever moment she was in, I could have just chosen to participate in it. All right. That's our takeaway. Our last hymn is Return Again. It's another shorter hymn. It's number 1011. Maybe we can sing this through 2 times, Jera? So if you would turn to it and rise as you are able. If you would, this one, thank you. So we're going to end with a closing words by Rumi. One night a man was crying, Allah, Allah. And his lips grew sweet with praising, Allah, Allah, until a cynic passed by. So, I hear you calling out, but has Allah ever responded? And the man answered, no. So he quit praying and fell into a confused sleep. And in his sleep he dreamed he saw Kidder. Kidder is the guide of souls. And Kidder was there in a thick green foliage. And Kidder asked the man, why did you stop praising Allah? And the man said, because I've never heard anything back. And Kidder said, this longing you express is the return message. The grief from which you cry out draws you toward union with Allah. Your pure sadness that wants help. This is the secret cup. Listen to a dog howl for its master. That howl is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. Happy Father's Day, everybody.